This video, I'm going to show you how I made this fabric bow using my Serger, the Brother 1034D, as well as the rest of the bows that you will be seeing on the screen later or that were in my thumbnail. So go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get into the video. So first I'm going to start off with my fabric still on the fold, so it's still folded in half, and I have my pattern that I made myself. To make this pattern, I just took a big piece of paper and I cut it to be the length of 12 and the width of 9 inches, and then I cut that middle area out so that I could see what would be on the front of my bow. So that's why there's an opening, and I'm using these buttons and these little rocks or pebbles that I found at Dollar Tree to be my pattern weights. And I'm just going to cut out my pattern as close to this as I can get without cutting my pattern. Y'all know, I already told y'all multiple times, if you see my videos, I am not good with cutting straight lines on my patterns. So I normally have to use my cutting mat as a guide, but I'm trying it this time and my rotary cutter is being somewhat compliant compared to other videos where I have to go over the same area like a few times. So as you can see here, I'm just going to cut out my pattern, not really leaving a seam allowance because I don't really need it for this. So just cutting out that pattern, and again, my pattern is a rectangle, which is the size length 12, the width is 9, and that's in inches. And you can adjust that to be bigger or smaller, whatever you would like. And the little patch that you see above my towel that I just placed down, I cut out also off camera a 2x4 inch piece of fabric, and that's gonna be my middle strip for my bow. So now that I have my pattern cut out, I did get a towel because I'm going to use my iron to put my interfacing onto the back side of my fabric. So as you see that here, I just laid out both pieces of fabric. This is what interfacing is. The bumpy side needs to be on the bottom and the more smooth side needs to be on the top. And I'm going to put this on the wrong side of my fabric, as you see me doing here. So the bumpy side needs to be on the bottom and the smooth side on the top. And you'll know when you feel it that there's little bubbles on the bottom, and you'll be able to tell which one needs to go where. So now to get mine to fuse, I like to just take my iron and let it sit there for a couple of seconds, and I move it around until my entire fabric has been fused. Once it is bonded to my fabric, you'll be able to see the difference in the appearance. It will no longer have little bubbles like it had before. It'll look like this. You no longer see the little distinct small bubbles like it had. So it's now fused to my fabric. And I'm going to do this one off camera. I'm just showing you the difference. You see the little bubbles here? They're no longer there because it's fused to the fabric. Now I am going to take my fabric, and I would normally place it right side facing up and iron over it, but I forgot. So now I'm just finding my middle seam by folding that in half, and I'm going to iron down that seam because I'm gonna need to be able to see it. So once I iron that down, I did decide, since I forgot to flip it over and iron the entire piece right side facing up, to just do this step a little bit extra. I normally just iron the seam to give it a middle line, but I just went over the whole thing because I forgot that step. So now I can fold the bottom to the middle, and then I'm going to do the same thing to the top. Fold that top part into the middle where that seam is that I ironed with the iron. And now I'm going to go over this part again with the iron. I normally wouldn't do this, but like I said, I missed a step. And now that I have it like this, I'm going to fold it this way and make sure that it is even, and I found a middle point as well. I'm going to need that middle point once I serge that side. So I'm going to add my clips, and once those clips are added, I am going to use the iron to press a seam on the opposite side. And once I have that seam there, I'm going to take this to my serger, and I'm going to serge down that open edge that I put the clips on. So once I'm at my serger, I'm going to use that second line. It's kind of faint on the screen, but I do have grooves that are on my serger so that it can guide me so that it's the same length on all of my items. And I'm also going to take that 2x4 piece of fabric, fold it right sides together. And I'm also going to use that same string, not cutting it, because I'm going to just pick it up from my serger and move it to my working table, as you see here. So now I can just disconnect these by using the scissors and cutting off the excess thread that was left by the serger machine. And now I'm going to take this one and do the same, so cutting off the extra pieces, and this is just going to be that middle strip that goes to cover the middle part of the bow. So now that I have that done, I'm going to take my main part of the bow and move my middle part out of the way, and I'm going to fold that in the middle. The seam that we made earlier, that serger line or hem, whatever you want to call it, needs to meet that in the middle. And once it's that way, I can start making sure that everything is straight and aligned the way I need it to be. And then I'm going to pick it up, and along that middle line, I'm going to start folding ridges into it so that it can form the bow shape that I want it to have. This takes me a little while. I like to play with it for some reason. I like my bows to look a certain way, so I'm going to play with it before I even put the zip tie on, just to make sure. And sometimes it comes apart. Don't get frustrated, just keep trying, because it just takes a few times to get it right. And I'm just playing around with it to get it look the way I want it to. Once I have it close to the look that I need it to be, I'm going to take my zip tie. And don't forget this step. I always put my zip tie on and forget, you need to add an elastic. So I'm going to hold my zip tie in place on the back, and then I'm going to put my elastic in between the zip tie and the bow. And I'm still playing around with it to get it to the way I want it to. I'm going to pull the string, the zip tie, just a little bit, but not to the point where it's completely closed. I need to pull it so that it's in place and I can still manipulate the actual fabric. So that's what I'm doing here. Once I have it the way I want it to look, I am going to completely pull the zip tie and then play with the bow just a little bit more. It's a lot about just pulling and tugging to get it to look the way you want to. And once I have it in that placement, I finish pulling my zip tie, and then I'm going to cut off the entire extra piece so that it's not hanging off the top. And now that that is cut off, I'm going to make sure that that's always in the middle of the back. And I'm still just making sure that it looks good to me by pulling and adjusting it. And that's why I don't really sew the middle part anymore like I used to. Before I made videos of this, I would sew that middle part together, but it wouldn't allow you to adjust it and make it look better. So that's what it looks like now. And moving on to the step of fixing the middle strip, I'm going to put a safety pin through that middle part and basically just put it right sides facing outwards. And it takes me a little bit of time, so that's all I did. And you can also use a loop turner, I think, for that, but I don't have one, so I just use a safety pin and push it back through. Now this open, the serger line is on the middle, and I'm gonna flatten it out so that I can wrap it around the bow. And before I put any glue on it, I like to position where I need to start and stop it, because sometimes it's a little different. It's not always the same, and I'm not sure why. But I'm just gonna wrap it around to make sure that both the end pieces are gonna be at the back of the bow, not at the top or the bottom. So now that I've done that, this is the glue that I'm going to use. It's called Liquid Stitch. It's very fast compared to, there's another glue that I tried before. I like this one. It goes on white, but it is going to dry clear. So I'll put a little bit on the first end, and then I'm going to hold that down with my finger, and then I'm going to work my way all around the bow. Also massaging it in just sometimes and holding it so it can stick. And once I'm finished with that, I'm going to sit it in front of a fan because I'm not patient at all, and I'm going to let it dry. But this is what I'm doing, is just putting the glue on, pressing it down, rubbing it a little bit, holding it with my fingers, and continuing all the way around. And once I'm finished all the way around, I do like to hold it for a little while and continue making sure that it's not going to come apart while it's drying. So this is what it looks like. This is what the front of the bow will look like. Once it's dried, it will not have that glue that you see on here. And this will be the finished product. This is the front of the bow. And no, I didn't let it dry. I'm going right now and finishing this video. And this is the back of the bow. Now I can go sit it and let it dry. And it's gonna come out like these. Some of these do have clips on the back, and some of these have elastic bands. But it just is, I can show you guys how to make that. Just comment if you want to know how to put the clips added to the back instead of the elastic band. And that's it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video with your crafting or sewing friends. Thank you.